Hi everyone, it's Christian from New York Chess and Games, and today I'm going to show you something really cool to do. We're going to learn how to checkmate with a knight and a bishop when your opponent just has a king left. I'm going to show you a really simple strategic system so that anytime you have a knight and a bishop versus just the king, you will always put down the checkmate smackdown. Alright, the first component to checkmating with a knight and a bishop versus a king is to understand that you can only checkmate the king in one of the corner squares that is the same color as the bishop you're using. So if you're using a bishop that is traveling and attacking and influencing the dark squares, you will only be able to checkmate the king in one of the dark square corners. If you're using a bishop that's traveling and influencing and attacking the light squares, you will only be able to checkmate that king in one of the light square corners. In this example, we have a dark square bishop, so clearly we're only going to be able to checkmate this king in one of these two corner squares because they are dark. Now, step number one is to use your king and your pieces to create wall pressure. That's what I like to call it, wall pressure, and push your opponent's king to one of the edges of the board. Now, of course, he doesn't want to go there, so he's going to do everything he can to try to stay in the middle. But as long as you keep your pieces together so they can't be captured, and you are consciously avoiding stalemate, making sure that you leave him a move, then you will easily see how just simple it is to push him against an edge of the board. So let's get started. Alright, so the king moves, he attacks my bishop. I'm trying to move toward the king. I'm bringing in all of my pieces. Once he attacks my piece, I alertly save it.
Check.
He backs up, and I put my king here so that the king and the knight and the bishop are creating a nice little wall, which I'm going to use to push the king toward the edge of the board and in the corner. Every time the king moves moves back, one of my pieces or my king moves up to create another wall, to create more wall pressure and to continue to push him toward the edge of the board.
Check.
He moves back, I'm moving up. He moves back, I'm moving up. And you can see we're continuing to take this wall that we started with over here and push it this way so that we are forcing the king to the edge of the board. Alright, we have him on against the edge of the board, so we want to make sure that he doesn't come out. And here it is. We have a nice little holding net for the black king. He can't come out, right? He's in a pattern where he can only move this way, and he can only move this way but so far, right? Because he can't go here and he can't go there. So he's basically stuck right here. He's stuck in this 1, 2, 3 square shuffle. Just by using our pieces, we've cut off the squares for the king, and now we're going to start forcing the king into stage 2. Stage 2 is forcing him in to that checkmating square. So we either want to make him go to the right so he gets into this square, or we want to bring him downtown so he gets into this square. In this example, I'm going to force him to the right. So when he moves, I see that this square I need to cut off so that he has to go to the right. And this bishop is only controlling the dark square, so obviously I'm going to need to use my knight. So I'm going to bring in my knight and check the king on that square. The king slides to the right, and now we're going to make a nice little waiting move while we hold our attack on these squares and this forces him, because he has to move, to slide to the right. So we're already looking good, getting him into our plan of moving right into this checkmating square on h8. Now this bishop is to stop him from coming back. So he has to continue to move toward the right. So bishop to a7 took away this square. So even if he wanted to come back, he couldn't, because we have security there. So he slides to the right. And now an important thing to understand, once again, this knight is helping us control this king by creating this wall pressure. All of our pieces are working together to create wall pressure. So he's going to have to go to the right or the left, but even if to the left, he can't go all the way back to the corner. So we're still making progress toward getting him into this h8 checkmating box. So he decides to move toward the right, and we bring out our bishop to continue to cut off the diagonal that we don't want this king to escape from. One of the things that I want you to see is that the pieces are using their influence and their power to make sure that the king does not escape. And you have to be conscious of how to use these pieces so that you don't let them out. Now in this position, sometimes the king tries to pop out by moving here, in which case this bishop on this diagonal controlling these squares, and then we make a move like this with our knight controlling these squares, helps to create the wall again. So should he move back, right, we're going to take away more space. We need a nice little waiting move. So we have this, 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 and this. Alright? So if we make a move like this, he's going to have to move toward the right again. Okay? And so if we move here, we're taking more space away from him. Remember, we have this wall, right? He can't go there, here, or here. So he would have to move either here or here, but either way it's back toward the edge of the board and toward the right, toward that dark checkmating square. That's a really important thing to see and to understand how the pieces are working together to create the wall. Alright, this is one example of creating the wall. And also, if the king were to try to stop out here, moving the knight here would be another example of creating the wall. So we're looking at all of the squares that our pieces are attacking. If he moves here, right, we have this wall pressure right here, and he's trying to escape toward the left. Remember, he doesn't want to go toward the right. So what we would need to do is just make a nice waiting move, and again this would be forcing him to go toward the right, toward our checkmating square. Alright, so but in this example of it, our opponent decided to move back toward the left. He doesn't want to get in that checkmating box, and he's trying to stay away from the checkmating square. So he moves back to the left, and we bring our bishop to e5 to take away any hopes of him getting back into this a8 square. And check to the king. The knight takes that square away. The king and the bishop are working together to create more wall pressure. And so once again we check him with the knight, and the king has to slide to the right. Please remember that if you do not checkmate your opponent within 50 moves, you have 50 moves to checkmate your opponent. If you don't checkmate him within 50 moves, he or she can claim a draw. So that's why it's important to really understand the strategy and to be clear about not allowing him to either get a draw through stalemate, right, threefold, repeating the position 3 times, or the 50 move rule. That's a very important thing to remain conscious of. Alright, we checked him with the knight. He slid over to the right, and now we're going to take away more space from him and apply more pressure and force him to move again toward that checkmating square. So he moves over. We're going to move over and take away this critical square. Right? That leaves him here or here. And we don't want him to go to the left, right? We're moving him toward the right so that he can get into this checkmating square. So, right, we make a nice little waiting move, and bishop to c7 takes away that square. Okay? This doesn't allow him to go back to the left. It forces him to move in the direction that we want. Now, the knight moves here to create more wall space, and also, as you're going to see, obviously to take away that light square, which is what he's trying to get back to. So when he moves there, check the king again. When he slides over, we protect the knight, and we have taken away that square. And as you can see, we're continuing to apply wall pressure and to push him into the corner. All right? We started all the way over here, and we moved him all the way down into the corner. So very shortly, we're going to get into the checkmating execution component. All right. Very soon, we're going to have the chance to checkmate him. Once he slides to the right, we're going to take this bishop and use it to cut off that square so he can't go to the left again. And now we have him where we want him. He's in the checkmating square. All we have to do now is take away the squares that he can use to dance around our checks. So in this position, he has this square, and this square to dance around our checks. And we don't like that. We want to be able to cut off the king. So our pieces are going to be moved in a way to cut off our squares. Cut off his squares. So he can go here, right? And he can go here, but that's it. We've already cut off more squares. Just by moving the knight, we've taken away 3 squares, and we've taken 3 squares and diminished it to 2. So now he only has these 2 squares to go to. Once he moves here, we're going to move our king into position to control this important square. And now he's only going to have this square to get into. He's going to shuttle back and forth from h8 to g8 until we checkmate him. So we're going to need to be able to position our knight in such a way so that he doesn't have this square, right? So the knight's going to need to be able to be either here or here, right? And it's going to have to be our turn, right? So we're going to need to do that on check. So when we check him, he moves back into this square, and then the bishop comes here to create a checkmate. So that is how we're going to execute the checkmate. So it's a holding pattern from here. All you have to do is figure out exactly what you need to do, what square your knight needs to be on. Sometimes it may take you a second, but you really should just figure it out. And once you find out, oh, now I see, check, I need to bring my knight to a position where I can check him. Good. So now I have it, right? I'm going to make this waiting move so that once he moves here, I can check him, and then he's going to get back into the checkmating square, and I can bring my bishop into f6 and checkmate him. Once you see it clearly, you'll be able to get
checkmate.
Your checkmate. Okay? Let's recap. First thing that you need to know, you can only checkmate with a knight and bishop if you push the king into a square that is the same color as the bishop you're using. Second thing, use your pieces to take away space from the king and force your opponent's king to the edge of the board. be conscious of the wall that your pieces are creating as they move together. If your opponent moves back, you move up. Every time his king moves back, you should be moving up so that you are taking away space and creating more wall pressure. Once you get your opponent into a corner or against the wall, then you want to identify which square you need to put him in and start moving him in that direction. So we're going to take away this square so that we can start moving the king to the right. Using your pieces very skillfully, creating walls, pressure, and taking away any escape squares from him.
Check.
Check forces him to go back to the right. We're going to protect the knight. When he slides over, we slide up, taking more space away. A waiting move, but holding this diagonal so he can't pop out, which makes him go back toward the checkmating square, and then locking down that escape square. So he has to continue to go toward the right. And again, using our knight so that we can come here and either take away this square or check him and move him again toward the right.
Check.
The king comes in and plays security, holding the knight. We're creating this nice little net, forcing this king to move into the box. Using our bishop to take away his escape square. Once he slides into where we need him to be, we're going to take away more space from him. Put our king into this nice little position so we have this wall, right? And then, and sometimes it's not easy to see. I mean, there's clearly some better moves to be made here other than knight to g7 initially, but you'll be able to do it fairly simple without error, as long as you see, oh, I needed a waiting move with the bishop. Right, there it is. And then check and
checkmate.
Checkmate. Alright, leave me your comments. Let me know if I can answer any questions, or if you have anything to say. I'd be really, really happy to hear from you. It's Christian from New York Chess and Games.